If we capacitate our development control department, we are then able to deal with issues of change of use, as was highlighted earlier, that normally people who force change of use are very powerful people, very connected people, and if there is no counter force, there are people who are used to getting their way to be where they are, and eventually the environment suffers. But I do sense a renewed commitment from government, from our local government ministry, from the President's office, the meetings I've had, and even Parliament. The chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Environment is very, very keen to participate and to deal with these issues. So if we take advantages of those synergies, we'll be able to get somewhere.
EIA process. It's clearly stated, to be specific, that is the Statutory Instrument 7 of 2007. The stakeholders were supposed to be consulted. What are they supposed to look for and so forth? It's clearly. So that is another topic for another day. Okay? And then number 3, councillors to take a lead. Yes. Councillors to take a lead in the development of the ward environmental action plans. All local authorities, ladies and gentlemen, are supposed to have LEAP documents. LEAP. It means local environmental action plan, where they're going to come up with environmental challenges within their localities. All right? So among those environmental challenges, we do have wetland utilization challenges. So that has to be developed again at what level? So that document has to be developed at what level by councillors. The lead person there is the councillor. So he's supposed to come up with a one environmental action plan.
In Zimbabwe, we have some very positive environmental laws. Our constitution protects the right to a healthy environment. So does the Environmental Management Act. We also have specific provisions like Section 97 and Section 113 of the Environmental Management Act that require that you get written authorization or a certificate from the Environmental Management Agency if you're going to disturb a wetland. But unfortunately, these provisions are not effectively protecting wetlands. Why is that? Firstly, the regulations are not very clear. There's not a very clear prescribed procedure, particularly for public participation and consultation. If you conduct a prescribed project on a wetland, that's like a housing project, a mining project, or drainage of wetlands, you do need to get a certificate from the Environmental Management Agency, and you do that through first drafting a prospectus and then a report, and those get authorized by the agency. But the consultants who are preparing these reports are paid by the project proponents, and they're also not being monitored and regulated if their reports contain false information or they haven't conducted the report independently, properly assessing the environmental or social impact of the project. There are no repercussions. Those consultants remain on the register, and those faulty reports are often authorized in environmental impact assessment reports are issued. So we need a better process of regulating the consultants and reviewing the reports, and also clear procedures on public participation, and also guidelines on what basis is the Environmental Management Agency making its decisions. Is it really considering the environmental impact of a project before authorizing? And also look at the funding of the Environmental Management Agency itself. It needs to be an independent agency focused on environmental protection. It currently is very underfunded and is self-funded. The project proponents pay a portion of the fee of the project for their fee to the agency. So the agency is also conflicted and more likely to grant a certificate than not. The appeal process is also problematic. You simply have to write to the Minister of Environment to challenge an environmental impact assessment certificate. And that challenge is not made public. It doesn't stop a developmental project in the meantime, and there's no, again, the minister has no guidelines on when not to approve the project. The National Environmental Council hasn't been established, which it should be in terms of the Act. That would provide a body of experts to guide the minister in the decision-making process. There's no time frame for the environmental impact assessment certificate process. There is a time frame of 60 days, but after 60 days, the certificate is automatically granted by default. So that's whether or not it impacts the environment, it can be granted by default. At least there's a time frame, but that default provision really needs to be removed. With the minister, there's no time frame, so if you're a community challenging a project, it can simply be dragged on indefinitely. Then when the minister reaches its decision, that decision is not made public. The appeal process is then to the administrative court, then to the Supreme Court. It's a very expensive process for communities to challenge developments. So that all needs to be reviewed and updated. And the regulations also need to include a clearer social impact. I know the World Bank is currently looking at this. We need to update our regulations and provide specific protections for wetlands. We have two general notices gazetting specific wetlands in Harare, Epo, and Chitungwiza, and rural wetlands. But these gazettes are not providing any additional protection even for Ramsar sites. So under the Ramsar Convention, you designate specific wetlands as wetlands of international importance. But those sites have no additional protection to other wetlands that are gazetted in those general notices. So those general notices could be updated to gazette all wetlands countrywide and prohibit interference on wetlands except in really exceptional circumstances of national interest.